There are many, many ways to do this. You can make your own soil, which some people do, and but throughout my career, I have preferred to buy soil because I had a lot on my hands, and it was a job that I left to someone else who specializes in that. But you can certainly make your soil, and there's those who develop that skill, and and it's not all that difficult. It just takes some time and practice, but it does take time to make soil and to get it right. So I have always preferred to buy these, and now they are readily available at many locations at all your big box stores. And I just bought one at my local hardware store, an organic potting mix. And traditionally, what I've experienced with the local big stores is they'll carry a variety of them, and then you find one you like, and they'll stop carrying that one. The important thing is that it's organic, and how we know that it's really organic, it's got this little, in the corner, this OMRI listed seal, and that's the Organic Materials Review Institute, and they're approved by the USDA to evaluate and give approval or denial on whether a product complies to be used on organic farms. So that's what this is, and you'll see it on this bag as well. It says OMRI listed, and so that's the main thing I suggest. The other thing I suggest is you want one that's well sifted, and I found that some of the cheaper ones are not. So they got big larger material in there. You'll find pieces of bark and things, and that kind of interferes when you're filling small cells like this. And so that's why I'm willing to spend a few dollars more and get one that's a good potting mix that's got some fertility in it through mixtures with compost, and also it's well screened, so that way all the big chunks are taken out. Now, even when it's well screened, and this is what it looks like, sometimes when you get it, it'll be in larger clumps. And I recommend that when you put it in the bucket that you break, here's one, that you break it up. And here's one of those chunks of bark I was talking about. So you even find it in the ones that are well sifted, well screened. And so I break it up first in a bucket before I apply it in there. I use these trays, which are a more commercial style of tray, but you probably get little 6-packs and 8-packs from the store when you buy transplants, and you can reuse those, or you can buy trays. So as you can see, I've filled the tray, and then what I do next is I take an old tray and I kind of press down on top of the other tray. And what I'm doing is I'm compacting the soil a little bit. Want to make sure you get it evenly compacted. So you can see where it's kind of indenting each of the cells a little bit. And the idea here is you don't want the seed right at the surface. You want the seed to be down in the soil a little bit, and then afterwards we will cover it with just enough enough soil to maintain the moisture on the seed so it will germinate. And we'll talk a little bit about that, a little more about that later. So this is the first step, is to fill the tray with soil, press it down, and next we will add seeds. Okay, so now we're ready for the next steps. I have all of my supplies here and ready to go. And I've got my little tags here already made up. I put the date on one of them. I only dated one since the whole tray is going to be started the same day. So I'm going to give you a small demonstration here. I won't bore you with the whole thing. But the tray, as we did in step one, we got the soil in it, and we got it properly dibbled. And then you'll see that these lettuce seeds are very, very tiny. So the idea is to get one in each cell, and sometimes I put more than one in each cell, and then I thin them out as they sprout, because if you have more than one in each cell, then you end up with some lettuce that doesn't grow the whole full head, which, you know, I'm a little more particular about that than you might be. Again, this is just one way of doing it. You can also direct seed lettuce right directly into the ground, and that's enough. So this is the new red fire. So I've got my tag made out here, new red fire. So I'm going to go ahead and top this off yet. So the idea is, the smaller the seed, the less you want to put on top. So you sprinkle a tiny bit of soil on top and fill that cell up with soil. You just want enough soil to hold the moisture, but you don't want so much that this little tiny seed cannot push itself out. So really, how deeply you plant the seed is going to be dependent on the size of the seed. You'll see that the cucumber seeds we're going to plant are much heavier seed, and so therefore you can plant it much deeper, and it still has the strength to push itself out. So here is the new red fire. So we're going to repeat that process for our different lettuces, red oak and bib, and then I also have a form of pak choi that is my favorite variety called joy choi, and it grows big and beautiful, and it's very easy to be successful with, which is something I encourage, to pick things that are easy to grow. We're getting kind of to the end of the lettuce season, so I'm doing this at the very last part of the window for starting lettuce here in Florida. But the idea is that you would have good timing and planning ahead when you do this. So I'm kind of doing it for demonstration purposes, but we are right at the edge of the window, so I should be able to get a crop out of this. And for those of you who might be interested, you know, when we're coming out of our summer season and you're trying to start lettuce early, you can actually put a smaller seed tray of these lettuces into the refrigerator, because lettuce won't germinate unless it gets cold enough temperatures. And at night, I think we still have cool enough temperatures now. But one trick I used to use when I had a farm and a big walk-in cooler is I would put my lettuces in the cooler and fool them into thinking it was cool and time to germinate, and got much better results that way. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the cucumber seeds, and you'll see that that's a bigger seed, and I'm going to plant it in these same cells. The difference being is that the cucumber seed will sprout and be ready to plant in 7 to 10 days, whereas these lettuce seeds can spend anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks in the tray before you actually transplant them into your garden. Okay, so here are the lettuce seeds, and I'm going to put them way down at the other end so I don't get them confused with my smaller seeds. And then again, that's kind of a little technique I developed over time, and I'm just putting one per cell. And these things will pop out, and I'm pushing them down a little bit deeper, but they'll pop up real quick, and they'll root bound in the cell, so they'll be ready to come out quite quickly. I showed you how I covered up a few cells. So the one step that we didn't video was to complete the rest of the tray. So you get all the seeds in, and then you top them off lightly to hold moisture, and then you're ready to water. Okay, now you can see that I've got the tray completely seeded, and I have all the little tags in there, and I've got it leveled off with soil over the top of the seeds, and enough to maintain moisture. And so the next step is to give it a light spray. You don't want to hit it too hard. You don't want to remove that soil. And sometimes I may come back later and drop a little bit more soil on top. But the important part is to give them a light spray. And I do this a few times because the soil, the transplant soil that I'm using and what you get in bags is inherently dry. And so I'll come out a few times tonight and I will give them a gentle spray. And a greenhouse setting is actually ideal, but I found this nice little spot in my garden where the critters don't mess with these trays. They only get morning sun. There's a sprinkler nearby, so they get automated watering from the sprinkler system. And as they sprout and become more hardened, then I'll move the tray more into a sunnier spot where they can, when they're a little more secure and can handle harsher conditions. On 3/19, as you can see on this tag, we planted this tray for our video. And today is March 23rd. So that's 4 days. I noticed yesterday on the 22nd that they were popping up. So one of the things that I try and do is, I had told you in the previous video that I try and do a single cell, but in some cells I plant extra. So you can see there's 2 in those cells. And one of the reasons I do plant extra is in case some of the cells don't germinate. Like these probably will still come up. They're almost all popping up. But here's a couple cells that aren't showing anything. And so if a cell doesn't germinate later in the process, I will carefully separate out using this tool. I like them singular, so that way they create a nice full head of lettuce or whatever the crop you need. Some crops you can put multiple seeds intentionally into the cell, such as I don't know, parsley. I'm not so particular about Swiss chard, although sometimes I do direct seed Swiss chard, such as this case in my garden. So, you know, the singulation is not universal. Things like fennel and bok choy, I definitely like having only one in each cell. So I wanted to show you how I do the singulation, as I called it, where you have multiple little plants coming up in one cell and you want to transplant them into another cell. So with that said, I have my little trusty tool here, and you can use anything similar, the end of a little spoon or something flat, and I kind of separate the soil from the edge of the tray a little bit, and then I'll take my fingers and I'll sort of gently tug on it, and you can see how easy it came right up. Still has the little seed hanging off of its initial seed leaves. These are the 2 original seed leaves when it sprouts. And then for demonstration purposes, I'll show you how I'll just pick this cell and I make a little hole and I drop it in. And I push it down, and then I'll make sure and give it a little extra water. That way the transplant medium that's in there, where I just, you know, there will be air around that root now, so I'll put water. That way all of the medium is washed right up close to close contact with the actual root surface that's down in the cell. And that's really important when you do this, is that whenever you transplant something, you want to water it in immediately. That way any air pockets that are created during the process, you want that root to have good contact with the medium. And that's how you achieve that, is by watering in, and the water will wash the medium into any air voids that are down there, and it'll make your little transplanting process much more effective. So today is March 28th. So that means it's been 9 days since these were planted. You'll see that I have singulated all of the cells. And you can see how the cucumbers really are ready for the next step, which would be either to plant it directly into the garden or plant it into a bigger pot and let it grow. For instance, these little 4-inch pots here, and let it grow to a bigger size before you plant it. I actually had cucumbers here in all of these cells, and I gave them to a neighbor, and hopefully they've got them planted in the ground and growing. But you can see how well all of the other transplants are doing. To recap the steps, we have our trays that we selected to use. We have our transplant medium that's finely sifted, doesn't have any big chunks. We fill the tray and then we press it. You can either press each little cell with your fingers, or you can do like I showed in the video by pressing in top with some other trays. So then when we get each one sort of, we got a little depression in there, and we drop our seeds in. For the small seeds, I just drop them right on top. The bigger seeds, I'll push them down a little deeper with my fingers. And then we apply that last little cover coat of soil. And remember, it's just enough to maintain moisture over the soil to so it will germinate and it won't dry out too much, but it's not so much that the little small seeds can't push out, and that's really one of the key points. And then you put them out, you water them, and in a few weeks or a few days, depending on the seed, you'll have your transplants. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you all take care and share this with your friends, please, and tune in for the next one. Thanks, and have a great day.